Hi, Ben here, and welcome to the knife making department. So we thought it'd be a good idea to just give you an update on the belts that I use for knife making and tool making. We have spoken before about my sort of preferred belts that I use for the actual knife making itself, and I have mentioned in the past these amazing belts from 3M called Cubitron II belts. They're not the cheapest, but they seem to last the best and obviously perform the best for what I actually need it to do. Now originally we used to get these ones because we were limited to what we could get in the UK, and they were what we call the 984s of the Cubitron IIs. They're designed more for sort of titanium and harder steels, and what I found is that you're paying a premium for that belt, and it actually tends to sort of almost glaze over when we're grinding at slower speeds and grinding sort of softer steels. So they've now brought out a slightly different one, which is the same belt, Cubitron II, but it's the 784s. They're a little bit cheaper, and they seem to actually perform better, which seems crazy, but because we're, like I say, we're grinding sort of softer steels, they seem to work really well. Now, the other thing that I found, I used to find that when you're grinding them, I used to grind them at full speed on the inverter drive on the grinders, and you'd actually find that they would actually sort of almost glaze over quite quickly. So playing around with different speed combinations, I found that if you grind at about 60% on your inverter drive, so a little bit slower, it's slower to actually remove the steel, but the belts just last a hell of a lot longer. The other thing that I found, which was actually a top tip from my friend Chris Williams out in America, who actually makes these grinders, the Wilmot grinders, and he said about actually dressing the belt. So when it glazes over, he suggested using one of these diamond dressers that you can buy online. They're actually for truing up high-speed bench grinder stones, but they work really well for like almost rejuvenating the surface of the belt. The only thing that you've got to do is you've got to then turn your inverter drive down even slower. So I normally turn it down to about sort of 20%, and then run the grinder, just like so. So much slower. And then we use this diamond dresser, and we just very gently take that across the surface of the belt. So you can see that we've actually taken some of that surface of the belt off, and it looks like you're sort of making it dull, but trust me, it actually makes this, sort of sharpens those little Cubitron blocks, because the Cubitron belts themselves work by these manufactured abrasive grit that's like a little pyramid. It's supposed to fracture like napping flint and create a new sharp surface. So actually taking that surface off with a diamond dresser, you're getting those nice sharp edges again. So once you've dressed it, you can then turn it back up to your 60% again, and then we can go back to grinding. So turn that on, running a bit faster, but now when I come to grind this blade, I can feel that that's cutting keener. Okay, we've got a little bit of blue in at that end, but that's with a very thin tip, but you'll find that it will grind a lot cooler as well. So obviously these are just in their annealed form, so it doesn't matter about any bluing, but keeping your belt sharp is really quite essential when you're actually grinding heat treated blades, putting the final grinds on and stuff like that. It's really important to keep nice fresh abrasives. Now the only thing that I have found out about using these diamond dressers, it doesn't seem to work with the very coarse grits, so something like P36 doesn't seem to have much effect on it, and the finer grits don't work, but certainly for the 60 grits and the 80 grits, it just gives you a whole new lease of life. So the fact that these belts are probably about 10 or 12 pounds per belt, if you can get an extra bit of life out of it, then that makes a hell of a difference really. Now, I've found that you can probably dress the belt maybe 3 or 4 times before it sort of becomes almost sort of useless, if you've almost taken all that grit off. But like I say, you get 3 times the use out of a belt. So, hope that helps. We'll put some links in the video to the actual belts that we use, where I actually get them from, and we'll see if we can find a link for one of these little diamond dressers. But they're not particularly expensive, but well worth having in the workshop. So yeah, hope that helps all you budding tool makers and knife makers, and tune in again for some more knife making top tips. Thanks for watching.